Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys smash that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another stream. We're ready to get started, folks. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of people waiting in chat, and I've only streamed like one live stream in the past month and a half. So we're back. We're in town for the foreseeable future. So the schedule is going to resume as is tradition, as usual. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, hopefully streaming at least 3 times a week and get you guys in the mix. And we're going to get to your super chats as well. But on top of that, for the first time in channel history, we are streaming on Rumble simulcasting. So not only are we streaming on YouTube, we're also streaming on Rumble, which I've wanted to do for quite some time. We've had the Rumble channel since 2021, and the platform is doing pretty well as of right now. So we're actually simulcasting to both to YouTube and Rumble, which is pretty epic. So you guys can really just choose whichever one to watch on for sure. Make sure you sub to the Rumble. If you are not subbed to the Rumble, Red Eagle Politics on Rumble, just like it is Red Eagle Politics on YouTube. But we have a lot to talk about because in the past month, one thing has happened, and the one thing that's really worthy of our attention, and that is Ron DeSantis' campaign is imploding. And we've been battling with these people, not necessarily just Ron DeSantis himself, but mainly a lot of the people around him, because they don't know what the hell they're running on. All they're doing is just acting like insufferable resist libs. A lot of them are attacking Donald Trump 24/7. That's all they can do. They're not even bringing anything to the table. They're attacking Trump surrogates. They're attacking 16-year-olds on Twitter, and more so than they're actually trying to, put forth anything of note for DeSantis. And you look at the way his campaign's being run, he's going out there and he's not even like appearing in his own campaign ads. His wife is doing most of the talking for him in terms of these campaign stops in Iowa, across the entire country. And it's like this guy was viewed by many to be a potential successor to Donald Trump, a potential, torch carrier if he was going to, wait until 2028. He was not necessarily my first choice, even in retrospect, but it's like, yeah, he would be in the mix. And he's exposed himself as somebody who won't even be in the mix now, not just because he's running against Donald Trump, but because of how incompetent his campaign has been run. And as a result, because his campaign has been so incompetent, he just keeps losing support and losing even more support than he had before. And on top of that, he could be in third place pretty soon. And I believe that there's a very good chance he does go to third place because the donor class is backing Ron DeSantis. They're rallying behind him because they view him as the best choice to beat Trump. But even they know at this point that Ron DeSantis has zero shot, not just in a general election, because he has none at this point in that, but also a primary election, because you can't even get to the general if you're unable to win the primary. And that part is very true. And he's sitting there now at 12%. He was polling around 40% nationwide, 5-6 months ago. A lot of people were saying it's over for Trump. Trump is going to be overtaken by DeSantis. DeSantis is the primary in the bag, a lot of people say. But as a result, Trump has kind of just been relatively on message. He's attacked DeSantis. Some of the attacks have been more effective than others, make no mistake about it. But he's still at 50 to 60% depending on the poll. And the only reason why he's fallen a little bit is because you have people like Vivek Ramaswamy kind of rising in these polls. And he's somebody that kind of aligning himself with Donald Trump despite the fact that he is running against Donald Trump. And he's somebody that's kind of like the stand-in. He's going to kind of be Trump's attack dog on the debate stage because I don't think Trump is going to attend at least the first debate. But on top of that, he's somebody that is from Trump's wing of the party. The people that support him also tend to be big supporters of Donald Trump and will enthusiastically vote for Donald Trump in November if he does end up being that nominee. So that part's also something a lot of people aren't taking into consideration regarding the polling. But that's enough of the numbers regarding just Ramaswamy. DeSantis is falling. That's the main takeaway here. And as he's falling, the establishment, the donor class that's behind him, they need a new candidate because they know that there's no chance for Ron DeSantis to get this nomination at this point unless you have some massive, rapid transformation. And they've talked about regrouping or rebooting the campaign for months, but how many reboots does a campaign need when it's only been in existence for like not even 2 months? How many regroupings, how many reboots, how many people do you have to muzzle because they make you look like absolute trash on social media? How many shakeups is it going to take for him to actually start to rebound? I've never seen anybody in history announce their campaign for president and lose support. Like Trump in 2016, he announced he gained support. A lot of people gain support when they announced their run for presidency. DeSantis had a shadow campaign going even before the midterms from what we saw, and a lot of people were propping him up even before the midterms even took place. And as a result, a lot of people were already familiar with the direction a potential DeSantis campaign would go, especially if he was naive enough to listen to these people, take the bait and challenge Trump. And he's done that. And as a result, his numbers are going down, down, down. They are going down. They are in the gutter. And it's like the 2008 stock market. It's just through the floor. And he was somebody that was doing well. He was up there at 40. Now he's down there in the mid-teens in most polls we see. And not only that, people are overtaking him. Who's going to overtake him? Because everyone says, oh, Vivek's going to pass him. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm not saying Vivek can't pass Ron DeSantis. In fact, Vivek could pass Ron DeSantis depending on what happens with the DeSantis campaign. But DeSantis' support as a whole is going to go to other candidates. And even though a lot of those voters are going to vote for Donald Trump in the general election, Trump may gain some of them in the primary, but some of them may, for at least right now, be looking elsewhere to some of these other candidates, and maybe they tend to lean more establishment in the primaries. Who are they going to go to? I believe they're going to line up behind Tim Scott. And there's several reasons for this, but the Iowa polls have Scott doing well. The New Hampshire polls have Scott doing well. South Carolina is going to be, I believe, like the third state in the primary process. And you have Nikki Haley running, but her campaign is all over the place. Tim Scott has a lot of money. He already has a lot of donors behind him. He has a lot of these Senate establishment leaders, people like John Thune, lining up behind Tim Scott already, even over somebody like Ron DeSantis. And it begs the question, the donors are going to back off from DeSantis at some point, just like they backed off of Jeb Bush in 2016 when his campaign was in shambles. Where are they going to go? They're probably going to go to somebody like Tim Scott. And yeah, the debates are going to dictate certain things. Who's going to rise up after the first debate? Who knows? Tim Scott, they're preparing him. He's a better debater and a better public speaker than somebody like Ron DeSantis. So if he sees a bump after that, yeah, he's probably going to take a lot of support away from somebody like Ron DeSantis, and as a result, that's going to negatively impact DeSantis even more, and he might fall into third place or fourth place. So it's going to be like a Trump-Scott primary more so than a Trump-DeSantis primary, because the establishment's not going away. We'd be naive for them to say, oh, we're going to put our chips down now and back Donald Trump for the nomination. It would be the smart thing to do because Trump's not losing the nomination. We know that by now, but we're at a point where they're pivoting away from DeSantis because that's how poorly his campaign has been run. And we see that there. His campaign staff are tweeting out this meme video, which again, I don't know if it came from inside the campaign headquarters, and they're denying that it did, but they said the same thing about the like anti-gay marriage video, which again, they're trying to show Trump is weak on those issues. DeSantis is weaker on those issues technically, if you want to get into like the whole, intricate details behind everything. But either way, doesn't matter. What we know is they put out this ad, and it's like, obviously, I agreed with the sentiment of the ad that was put behind it in terms of the whole, like, DeSantis is tough on gays thing. It's like, yeah, Trump was insufficient on those issues. I know. DeSantis is overrated on those issues, and that's also something that's true. But on top of that, it was a poorly made meme. They tried to say, oh, it's like a cool little edit. It was not cool. It was dumb. It was not something that really resonated with a whole lot of people, even that agreed with the ad or agreed with the, context behind it. But even so, it's funny. These are the same people that said we have to cave on gay marriage and all these things to remain electable, and that it was totally necessary for Dr. Oz in September to put out a series of tweets supporting gay marriage because, oh, it's Pennsylvania, it's electable, when he could have just said absolutely nothing. And then these are the same people saying DeSantis is the more electable one than Trump when he's going out there and they're posting these edits or whatever that are trying to like appeal to further right people, but they're made like so cringy that they don't appeal to anybody. And like the whole like edgy Zoomer, whatever, they're looking at these ads like, who's exactly making these ads? They're like millennials, Gen Xers that don't really understand these edits. Oh, you just discovered what a Wojak was. Congratulations, it's 2023 and you're not even using the memes properly. And then they put out this other edit that's similar that arguably is a better edit overall in terms of how it was edited, where they're saying, oh, Trump's abandoning his base or whatever, and then DeSantis is doing all these things in Florida, which again, it's not like Trump didn't do all these positive things as president. It's not like they're, selectively choosing certain articles to make Trump look bad, because they absolutely are. But still, when you're looking at what's going on here, what did they decide to put at the end of the ad? And there's no way this is like something that they missed, because this is a very intricate advertisement. And even if you want to say, and it wasn't an advertisement, but a meme, it was a social media advertisement that was kind of maybe fan-made, maybe made in-house, but it was promoted by several campaign staffers who were retweeting this meme. And these people are just so up their own rear end. They'll just retweet anything out that makes Trump look bad. It doesn't matter. It's like the articles we saw before the 2016 primaries where they were on Slate. I think it was some liberal journalist. Same author wrote 2 articles 2 weeks apart. Donald Trump is a moderate Republican. That's why he's winning. And then Donald Trump is an evil fascist threat to democracy. 2 weeks later, the same author, by the way, the same author decided to write both of these things. And it kind of just goes to show, hey, these people are just trying to gaslight people. They don't actually have these political positions or whatever, but they're going so far to the right, they decide to put the black sun in the ad, which is something that's a symbol of like the Azov battalion. It's like a Nazi symbol. And this is what the DeSantis campaign is putting in their advertisement. They're putting a Nazi symbol that kind of like has elements to the swastika in it, with a black sun behind the flag of Florida. And then they put DeSantis's face in the middle of it, I believe, at the end of it. And you have a bunch of like soldiers lining up behind it with guns. And this is their advertisements now. They're so desperate that they're like going so far off a cliff with their memes, and they're like poorly edited memes. And it's just like, you have to be kidding me. The optics are off the rails. The optics are out the window with the DeSantis campaign, so much so to the point where there's just no real like recovery. These are the same people that were moral grandstanding about, oh, Donald Trump retweeted this quote from Mussolini, even though it was like actually a quote that was substantive. But then they decide to retweet this stuff, and this is what they're putting out there, trying to like get people over to their side. In fact, it's just going to make people look at this and say, hey, this is what you're doing. These are the memes you're putting out. They're bad memes. They're not even good. And you're throwing optics out the window for no reason. And you're like trying to claim to be the candidate that's going to galvanize enough people to win or whatever, when you're just throwing ammunition at the opposition or whatever. And I'm not like punching right when I'm saying this. I think the whole ordeal is hilariously sad, but it's like they just don't fully comprehend what they're doing. They only have a conviction to get rid of Trump and to promote somebody like Ron DeSantis. And as a result, because they are so up their own rear end that they can't understand that their campaign is in shambles, their campaign is failing, that their strategy doesn't work, and that DeSantis has no path and has always had no path to the nomination in 2024, they're devolving into this. And it shows. It really does show. And that's why he's in 3rd place in South Carolina in the recent poll. He's falling behind Tim Scott in some other polls in like Iowa, or if you look at the whole trajectory of the race, he's probably going to be in 3rd, maybe even in 4th by the time December rolls around. It's true, because the establishment needs somewhere to go. I believe they're going to have to line up behind Tim Scott, because he's the one with a lot of money. He's the one with a massive war chest. And obviously, he's been a part of the Republican establishment. He's going to have a lot of backing there. And they probably know that somebody like Nikki Haley is just unpalatable for the electorate. They're probably just going to roll with Tim Scott because he's already showing how he's going to be in third place. And Pence and Haley, they're like the backups. You know, you have your second string quarterback, you have your third string quarterback. Technically, some of those guys are on the practice squad. Currently, their quarterback is Ron DeSantis, but he's throwing so many interceptions, they're going to have to sub him out at some point. And Tim Scott is kind of the clear backup at the moment, and he's actually polling decently well. Now, I oppose Tim Scott. Honestly, I oppose him more than I oppose Ron DeSantis for the nomination, and we know that. And we could talk about his past and why he's a grifter and why he didn't even have a cemented ideology until the Democrat office told him to get in line when he wanted to run for public office, so he went to the Republican office. So when you're looking at the big picture, I don't see a path forward for DeSantis at this point, even to get back to like 30% or so. He's not a good debater. He doesn't have any charisma. He's letting his wife do most of the talking. And if you attack that, then apparently you're evil for bringing his wife into it when his wife is the one getting into it herself by getting involved in politics. Why isn't she running? It's like the Trump quote on the debate stage where Jeb was like, my mother's the strongest person I know. And then Trump was like, she should be running. And it's like, yeah, technically this case, it applies even more so because at least Jeb Bush's mom was not on the campaign trail nearly as much so as Casey DeSantis is on the campaign trail. But it is what it is. I'm just saying that if you have to bring other people to do the talking for you to soften your image because you're that much of a robot on the national stage, then your campaign's not going anywhere. And as a result, all the people you've tried to attack and defame and dox and all this stuff within the campaign, you're going to get clowned on, rightfully so, at every opportunity because there's just so much subject matter. That's why we even keep talking about this. It's funny. And they're obviously not going anywhere. We know they're not going anywhere. But, and we honestly know that he's not even, I wouldn't even say he's the number one threat to Trump's nomination at this point, even though I don't think anybody's a serious threat to it. But it's just so laughable that we have to keep like putting the spotlight on it. It's just sad. You can't look away. It's like you're on the highway and you're driving down it and you see a massive 10-car pileup because that's what the DeSantis campaign has gone. He threw away a lot of his political capital, career potential. For what exactly? For what? To run and not even get second place? Not even, maybe even get third place? At the end of the day, destroy your image within the party because you let these crazy lunatics who are terminally online and in many cases mentally ill people run your campaign, because that's what's being done here. And as a result, Donald Trump is sitting back there. He's saying nothing, and his numbers aren't really moving a whole lot right now. And technically, you might say he's lost a couple of points, and a lot of that is because VIVEK has surged. And the VIVEK supporters, I think by the time the primaries roll around, VIVEK will likely drop out, endorse Donald Trump because he's going to want a cabinet position. He's probably not going to get VP. He probably is going to get some cabinet position. He'll raise his political capital in the future. I don't know, maybe he'll run for Senate in some future election in Ohio. Who knows? Maybe if Vance wins in 2028, he could take that spot. Who knows what's going to happen on that front? But either way, DeSantis's campaign, I think that this is, I mean, we already had the beginning of the end a long time ago. Him announcing in the first place was the beginning of the end. Now we're at the middle of the end. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens between now and the debates. What's going to happen at the debates? Is Trump even going to go to the debates, or is he going to do a forum with Tucker Carlson as he put on Truth Social today? That may be in the cards, but we'll have to really see what happens. But 662 live viewers. Hit that like button. At least on YouTube. Rumble says 91. I'm not entirely sure what if that's fully accurate or whatever, but maybe it is. Who knows? But make sure you guys like the stream. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button as well. And we are going to continue this stream. So we have super chats. We're going to get to some of the Elon stuff a little bit later because Twitter is going to be rebranded apparently. They're rebranding Twitter to X or something like that. I don't know. I don't think it's really a good marketing strategy. I mean, a lot of people say, you know, trust Elon, trust the plan, all this sort of stuff. when it comes to Twitter, but I just don't know how you're going to convince me that getting rid of one of the most iconic social media brands in history is going to be something that's going to be a net positive for the company. I don't know. I think the idea of paying for verification was a good thing. Obviously, most people aren't going to do it, but it kind of does even the playing field. People that work hard and have a following and are independent journalists, I guess technically myself kind of fits into that as a content creator, have the ability to be verified now, and that's a very good thing. But beyond that point, I think that some of these shakeups to Twitter are not exactly net positives, although we'll see. Zachary Marintet says, guys, I bring tragic news. R191 fell short by 5,000 signatures as of today, which means that parents can have their child hidden from them if they don't give the child an abortion or mastectomy. See, this is what happens. When you give the craziest people power in a society, you're going to have people do things that would be considered unthinkable 20 years ago. Schools now, if the school says your son is a woman or your son is a girl, then if you happen to disagree with that, you're going to have your kids taken away from you. This is a problem. This is scary stuff that is happening in our country today. And so many people are just turning a blind eye to it. And it's a very sad thing to see. But Cameron Campbell says, I think after Trump opened most people's eyes, whether that be through his speeches, actions, or actions against him, nobody trusts the swamp media, etc. DeSantis failing is a sign of all of this. Absolutely. And people will say, Trump didn't do this. Trump didn't drain the swamp. And it's like, we can critique Trump's actions. I've done it all the time. I look forward to continuing to doing it if he does happen to slip up here and there. Obviously, you have to call balls and strikes, and I understand that there's good intentions. I understand that there's a method to all of this stuff, but at the same time, when you're looking at this, at the whole deep state type of ordeal, oh, well, Trump failed to drain the swamp, Trump failed to do this. He opened up a lot of people's eyes to the point where a lot of people understand what we're up against, and that was not the case before he came along. It really wasn't. DeSantis was still in Congress with his mediocre voting record, the years before Donald Trump came down the escalator and kind of changed everything. So it's kind of what's going on. Zachary Marintet says, I meant R101 in Washington. Well, Washington is Washington, and Washington is a disastrous state. Now, economically speaking, they have lower taxes, which I think is a good thing because of the Californians that are liberal do tend to be moving out of California to the Pacific Northwest and Colorado, where the states are more like fiscally kind of, moderate, so to speak. The cost of living is not as high as California. And then the conservatives in California, they're the ones that go to Nevada, helping make that state potentially red. They're the ones that go to Texas. They're the ones that go to some of these other states and don't exactly compromise the electoral politics of it. So Mr. Jimmy says, thoughts on Alabama GOP refusing to draw 2 Democrat districts. It's a good thing because it's a bogus ruling by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rules against affirmative action, which is good. But then they say, oh, no, you need to draw more congressional districts in these communities for the sole purpose of affirmative action. That's all this has to do with. It's like because you have geography in a certain state that's awful for your party, it doesn't mean that you should be rewarded a district. Should Republicans be rewarded a district in Massachusetts? Should they be rewarded an affirmative action district based on race in a place like Nevada, in a place like New Mexico, or several in California and Texas where whites happen to be a minority in those states? No, it should have nothing to do with ethnicity when you're drawing up these maps. Obviously, Democrat areas, you're going to have those, vote sinks. You're going to have vote sinks in the Republican districts as well, depending on the geography, but it has to be done based off of population and based off of geography, whatever makes sense, not necessarily drawing districts just to benefit a certain ethnic group to give Democrats extra districts, because that's exactly what happens there. And obviously, if you're going to have Democrats gerrymandering states like Maryland and Connecticut to their benefit and Illinois, yeah, we should be going scorched earth anywhere we possibly can. The left gets power and they use it, and honestly, they abuse it. And we're even afraid to use it just a little bit. And that's a reason why we've lost so much of our country and culture as a result. And that somehow does play into the whole redistricting process. Security TV says, do you think the movie Sound of Freedom and the exposure of child trafficking will be an issue candidates should address? Well, obviously it's a big issue, as we know. I mean, you have these rings, and even when it comes to the border, how many people are trafficked across the southern border by who knows who, the governments, the cartels, you name it. There's so much human trafficking that does go on, and it's good that you have a movie that does kind of shine a light on that, and a movie that's kind of inherently conservative is actually doing very well at the box office, and we've seen a lot of that lately, which is a very good thing for changing the conversation, changing the culture, you name it. Olivia Williams says the Bashirs in Kentucky are like the Caseys in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I mean, except the Bashirs in Kentucky have the problem where they tend to be, barely winning the state, whereas the Caseys tend to do a lot better in a much, more or much less Republican state, or I would say, well, actually, no, the Bashirs, from what I'm trying to say, they are in a much redder state than Pennsylvania. The Caseys are in Pennsylvania, probably you would say it's a state that's toss-up, maybe, leans Democrat more so than not, depends who the candidates really are. But the Bashirs are a lot more beatable, mathematically speaking. We just don't do it. And it is true, though, because you have Bob Casey Sr., who is actually kind of like authentically a little bit more conservative, and then you have Steve Bashir being more conservative than the sons, which are both pro-choice or pro-abortion, I should say. And they tend to also just be these LARPing moderates when they're not even moderate at all. Olivia Williams says David Clark in Wisconsin is like Vernon Jones in Georgia. Well, David Clark is not a good candidate overall. He's not a good candidate. Whether people agree with what he says or not doesn't matter. You put him up, he's going to weigh down the ticket. He's somebody who's not popular, and you have better options that are more viable that can win, who are going to be just as good, if not better, on the issues. I think he's a lot like Vernon Jones, but he's not like as morally repugnant of an individual as Vernon Jones, who, is like like an actual credibly accused rapist, among other things, and had all these corruption scandals in his closet. Fairly Odd Politics is it time to doom about Wisconsin? Dems filed a lawsuit to bring back drop boxes. The state seems too rural to stay Democrat forever. They're going to try to do everything they can do. And if they put drop boxes up, we need to just utilize them. The drop boxes are not going away. We just need to, if they want to harvest in Wisconsin, we're going to have to harvest in Wisconsin. We're going to have to harvest better in Wisconsin than they harvest. The problem with this is the fact that Democrats tend to be more consolidated. The rural areas don't tend to be as Democrat, and they do tend to be less accessible. So we're going to have to work overtime to do it. It doesn't mean that it's not possible that we're going to be able to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be done. However, this is kind of like a major problem that we have, because we have one side that's utilizing the system. We're sitting back here and we're saying, no, don't use the system. We should vote on election day, which I agree we should. We shouldn't have these drop boxes. We shouldn't have ballot harvesting. We shouldn't have election month. But so long as it does exist, we're never going to be able to win an election with this in place if we're not able to utilize it ourselves. And the moment we realize that as a party, and I think a lot more people have, Trump's acknowledged this, a lot of people have acknowledged this, then we're going to be able to do a lot better, and then we're going to go out there and be able to actually win and slowly shift the electoral politics back over to our side, because you have turnout that you could say is inflated for the Dems, and then our side's not exactly as inflated. Well, we need to exactly kind of inflate ours by using the same methods they do, except do it better. We're more competent people, objectively speaking. I mean, it's just the way that it works, but we decide not to be competent. Our leaders that are leading us are not competent, and that's where the problem comes in. Olivia Williams says, DeSantis is not relevant. Why talk so much about him? We can enjoy his funeral of his campaign. You know, we deal with these people a lot on social media, and he is still the second place guy. And if in terms of what we have to talk about, I think it's important we talk about 2024. We're, 6 months not even away from the first primary. So, of course, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. And in fact, this stream, I have not just only talked about DeSantis. We've talked about a lot of other candidates in the mix because that's how irrelevant DeSantis is becoming. His people are just sad at this point. They have no direction. And I think that he's going to get leapfrogged pretty soon. I think by the end of the year, he's going to get leapfrogged. Maybe this will be another prediction of mine that doesn't end up being accurate. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen. But the way things are going, I believe that after the first few debates, if he does not somehow magically get a personality transplant, he's probably going to slip into third place, if not even fourth place by the time the primaries roll around. Doomsday Machine says, based on what I've seen Ramaswamy so far, I think he'd be a good VP for Trump. If something happens at Trump, Vivek is still number 2. Still my top choice is Trump, maybe Trump, Ramaswamy 24. Well, the thing about Vivek is that he comes from the same wing of the party. And doubling down is kind of like it's a risky move whether you agree with the selection or not overall. I think, objectively speaking, he's more of a cabinet type. He hasn't served in elected office either. And you might say, well, Trump, didn't serve and now he has, but still he's viewed as an outsider by a lot of people. I think he's going to have to choose somebody that's either currently in elected office or at least had served time in elected office at some point in history. I don't know who it's going to be, but either way, I think he's in this race for some position, probably a cabinet position, and he can be that attack dog for Donald Trump on the debate stage because it seems like that's the role he's playing. And the DeSantis people hate him so much. You know, if they actually were principled about looking at the issues that people were behind, they would probably not hate him as much, but they hate him with this passion because he's the only one that is not entirely anti-Trump that's in the running. So they decide to attack the guy who's running the campaign that DeSantis probably could have ran and probably would be doing better than he is right now. Samuel Harrison said, should Ron Johnson be Trump's VP? He's just not I don't think he really has the personality, and you're kind of risking a senator being appointed by a Democrat governor. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he can help Trump win Wisconsin, but he's not going to be the VP pick. I think you're going to need somebody for that position that can appeal to those states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I don't necessarily believe it's going to be somebody who's a statewide elected official from any of them. Honestly, I'd rather him go for Vance's VP than Johnson. But, I mean, Vance has only been in there for not even 2 years by the time that he would be selected as VP, so I don't really know if that's going to be the most viable type of thing to happen, but who knows. Sam Madsen says Vivek lives in Davidson's district, so he can take it if Davidson goes for governor in 26. I think that's viable because Davidson is not going for Senate right now. A lot of people are speculating he will go for governor in 2026. So I think that honestly might end up being the move. We'll just have to see what happens between now and then. Olivia Williams says Hung Cao has no chance. Kane won by 16 in a D+8 year. Warner outperformed Biden by 2. Calvert outperforming but losing a district is like MJ Hagar in Texas. Well, I'm not going to say he has no chance. I think he has kind of a very low chance. I do think he is a net positive on the ticket because you talk about these down ballot races. They're probably going to follow the direction that the Senate race goes. So if Trump, let's just say he loses the state by 7, Hung Cao loses by 3, then some of these other people are going to be running down ballot. Maybe the individuals running against people like Spanberger, maybe they overperform compared to Trump because of Cao, because they're down ballot per se, and the coattails do follow. But I do believe that you can't really pick Kane's performance or Warner's performance as kind of the the benchmark because they ran against horrible candidates who were not funded well. Meanwhile, Cao is a great candidate who likely will have some funding. I don't think he's the favorite. I wouldn't anticipate him to win. It just depends on the presidential margin, but he will outperform Trump probably by 3 to 5 points or so. Cameron Campbell says, can you make a video about the Utah Senate? As a Utah voter, I need to find a replacement for Romney. That not a swamp creature race soon. I will get to that. We'll do that soon. I mean, we haven't talked a lot about it. I haven't even looked into it that much, but that's the one top primary target for a Senate race that we could actually realistically take down, even though Romney is in Utah and Utah primary voters are weird and hard to comprehend sometimes. Let's see. John S. 915 says, how do you think Trump's legal issues are going to turn out? Also, his potential indictment in Georgia next month. Well, first of all, the Georgia case is completely bogus, which we could talk about the documents case being bogus, which I believe it's bogus. But there's more of a case for the documents case than there is literally any other case they've thrown his way. The Georgia thing is laughable. The New York indictment was laughable. The sex offender case with the crazy lady was also laughable, probably the most laughable of all, even though that's the one they got him on, even though it was more of like a civil suit. So I don't necessarily believe that he's going to go to jail. I think they're going to find some charge, probably get him on it and run with that. I don't think it's going to impact the general super negatively. I do believe that they're strategically timing it where it would negatively impact the general, at least in their view. But would it actually have that effect? I mean, he's been attacked wall-to-wall coverage and hasn't really lost support in polling so far that we've seen, primary or general election. He's gained in the primary. The general is kind of like 50-50. The polls go back and forth, depends on the poll. But either way, I don't necessarily believe it's going to put him in jail forever. I do believe that he's probably going to get some lower charge because that's how corrupt our justice system is. Hopefully he doesn't even get that. Hopefully they can find a way to get the case thrown out or, interpret the Presidential Records Act the correct way. We have yet to see. Purple Potato says, speaking of box office, your take on the Barbie Oppenheimer trend state map lining up with the red and blue state map. Well, I did see that map, and actually red Oregon would actually have come into fruition under that map if we're going to be looking at that. But I don't know. I mean, we see a lot of those maps on Google Trends, and it just is what it is. I know that the the whole Barbie movie craze, a lot of people are attacking it because it's like woke or whatever, even though one could argue, from what I've heard, I haven't seen either of the movies, by the way, but a lot of people are also saying it's so woke and it's so bad that it actually becomes like a satire of woke, where it's actually like reversing the horseshoe theory. I don't know. Either way, I will say that, yeah, you're going to have more conservative places be attracted to a more conservative movie, and then you're going to have more liberal places be attracted to a more liberal movie. However, it is true that you have anomalies like Oregon, which for some reason on that map was actually a red state. So I guess red Oregon, the 2019 meme video that I put out, did kind of come into fruition there. Mr. Jimmy says, thoughts on the right gaining in Spain? I mean, they're gaining everywhere. You see the populist right gaining everywhere. You see it in Scandinavia. You're seeing it in Germany. You're seeing it in Spain. It's rising up. Even when you look at the primaries here, we don't have like a multi-party system, but the Republican Party is being transformed. It's being transformed into an authentically nationalistic, populistic type of party. Even though we still have a lot of rhinos to get rid of, it is a slow process, a slow transformation, but we are seeing this in real time. So much so to the point where the establishment choice for president is somebody who is viewed as like the furthest right governor in the entire country for the past few years, even though he's kind of exposing his incompetence and lack of charisma and willingness to cave right now to the entire national stage. But that's beside the point. John Waffle says, does DeSantis drop out in November? Probably not. I mean, it's kind of like a sunk cost fallacy at this point. And if he drops out now instead of later, it might even make him look worse in the long run. I think he's trying to, at this point, he has to be playing for the long run, or they're waiting until they can try to indict Trump, and they're secretly rooting for Donald Trump to go to prison so they could get back to business as usual, put up their guy. But honestly, it's like, I don't know, they're probably going to have some sort of like deal where, oh, well, we're going to get Trump's base because we're going to have to just campaign on the fact that we're going to pardon Trump or whatever if we win. It's like, that's not going to necessarily, in my view, be enough to get Trump's base on board for somebody that gets like 10% in a primary nationwide. So we'll see. DJ Aftershock says Republicans need to start LARPing as moderates. Well, they need to stop stabbing their own in the back. That's our problem. You know, the left has their crazy people front and center, and these are people who are insane, but they're the ones that are viewed as moderates. You know, oh, John Fetterman's from the moderate wing of the party. Katie Hobbs is from the moderate wing of the party. These crazy people who don't even campaign are horrible candidates if you want to talk about the candidate quality type of thing, and they go out there and they win. They're the moderates, but we stab our own in the back far too much, and as a result, we keep losing. The left doesn't do that. They keep winning. We're always disavowing candidates or throwing candidates under the bus or spending X amount of millions of dollars in certain primaries that don't even need money to be spent on. And it's ridiculous. We spend so much money attacking our own people. We spend so much time and resources attacking our own. The left will never do that. And as a result, they keep winning. So we have to normalize just unity within our own party. Don't worry so much about the whole independent thing. The independents aren't going to vote for a lot of these people that these moderate, so-called moderate Republicans tend to like in many ways. It's true. It's funny because we hear it from these people, oh, DeSantis is like super far right, and he's like the real conservative, but he's also the moderate who appeals to these independents. It's like, well, he's like one of the only people that they didn't throw under the bus. In fact, they promoted him for a reason because he's kind of become a Trojan horse. So it's like, yeah, we need to actually put forth candidates that are authentic, and we need to obviously make sure that they campaign competently, but also give them the money. That'll give them the resources to campaign competently. That part is true. BCL Production says, Vance and Newsom in 2028, how would it go? I think Vance would win, honestly. I mean, like, let's say Biden wins re-election, I think Vance would win easily. I think that if Trump beats Biden in 2024, he will have, you know, he won't have the party fatigue factor going in his direction. But I think Vance would still win. Honestly, I think Vance is going to be up there to be that nominee in 2028. And honestly, DeSantis destroying his career now may benefit us in the long run, because I would much rather have Vance be the top of the ticket in 2028 instead of somebody like Ron DeSantis anyways. Let's see, 754 viewers. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on Rumble and you're new, because this is the first stream we're simulcasting in channel history, make sure you like the stream on Rumble. Make sure you subscribe, because we could always use more subscribers on both platforms we can. So, let's see. Joshua Zixel says, who should Trump pick as VP? Like I said, there's a lot of options, and we covered the short list in a video a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of people, and you have to pass many elements of the rep test. I can't remember the entire rep test right now off the top of my head, but you're going to have to find candidates that are going to be able to, help the top of the ticket remain viable, add something to the ticket. You're going to have to bring some sort of regional appeal and not exactly hurt the top of the ticket in certain places as well. So he's going to have to walk a very fine line. And you also want somebody who is articulate enough to go out there and win a debate against Kamala Harris as well, which again, it shouldn't be that difficult to do. But Re-Crucifixion Fail says, awesome work, bro. Thank you. Shannon says, bank your vote as the GOP's early voting initiative for 2024. Vote early if you can, not just on election day. Yeah, vote early. If you know who you're voting for already, vote early. I'm not saying you have to vote like 2 months before the election, but you should vote as early as you possibly can. And you could do in-person early voting, drop off your ballot, etc. if you are one of the male skeptics. But It is true. We need people voting as early as possible, as much as possible. The left has said vote early, vote often. How many times? How many times have they said that? And how many times has it worked for them? We don't do that. We don't. And you could say, well, the wait till election day people, are from our wing of the party. And it's like, technically that's true, but there are a lot of people as well in the GOP establishment who have been vehemently against things like ballot harvesting as well. But no, we need to use it to our advantage so long as it does exist. That's a problem. You have these issues. Sometimes people don't want to wait in line on election day for as long as they do. And we saw that in Arizona. And it's like, we actually need to win. We need to get more votes in the ballot box. That's how we win. It's not even about the independents. It's not even about appealing to these people or appealing to these people. It's really not. It's about going out there, getting as many ballots as you possibly can in the ballot box compared to your opponent. It's a game of points. How many points are we putting up on that scoreboard? That's all that matters at the end of the day. It's not even about messaging. Like, those things help. Like, what plays are you running necessarily, like, to inspire people? Yeah, that's true. But the 2004 to 2012 way of doing things, it's not in existence right now. This is a new era. And we have to utilize the era to our advantage, which we are able to do and which we can do, but we're not doing because we're lazy, stupid people. Not us, but the people that are running the GOP. And that's kind of an issue. There's many competent people who could be running it that aren't running it right now. And as a result, we just keep losing. John Waffle. Another John Waffle H2P super chat. People need to understand Kane is a carpetbagger who spent 50% of his life in politics. They need to vote this guy out. They need to back Cow. Well, Cow is going to get the nomination. The general election is going to be an uphill climb, not just because it's a presidential year, but because even though Youngkin won on an off-year election in Virginia, Virginia is still very much Virginia. It's a state that voted for Biden by 10 points. And while it could rebound a little bit, maybe it votes for him by like 7 this time around because you actually have a stronger state party. It's still not a red state. It's still not a swing state. Even if we are turning a corner, I don't believe it's ever going to really be that competitive at the national level unless it's a massive, massive wave or landslide or whatever, one way or another, which we're not even going to see those to a large extent. But even like we have like a, sizable popular vote victory for Republicans, like 4 points or so, in a few election cycles from now, okay, maybe then we'll see, we'll talk about it. But as of right now, I just don't see that. Sound Spartan says Mark Robinson for VP. I love Mark Robinson, but I am going to disagree because we need him in North Carolina, and he's just a lieutenant governor, and we're going to need somebody that can transform North Carolina to be that red state. I think in 2028, he could be on the ticket. Maybe he'll run for president then, or maybe he'll run in 2032. I think he will have his day. I just don't believe it's this second. Sam Madsen says the populist right is gaining everywhere else, yet here our primary voters are resoundingly keeping people like Guest and Raffensperger. What a joke. That's because of the GOP establishment spending so much money. Now, Raffensperger, I think that was a surprise. You had a lot of liberals voting in the Republican primary. That's kind of an issue, of course. Guest, that was a disaster. I think that there's just so much there is kind of like this American element, economically speaking, where you have this just reflex where anytime somebody mentions increasing spending in a certain way or talks about a social program, even if it's a right-wing program or it benefits the American people, where they're going to be like, that's socialism. So they were able to run all these ads calling Michael Cassidy a socialist rhino, and he ended up going out there and losing. But, that's kind of the problem. We have to be tactful about how we go about certain things, even navigating, just your regular boomers, because the boomers, we love the boomers. Some of them get it, but then a lot of them just don't really get it. And they're not even the ones on like conservative YouTube. They're just the ones in real life. A lot of them still probably watch Fox News. They like Donald Trump, but a lot of them might like some of these more establishment Republicans as well. And it's like, yeah, this is kind of going to be a problem. Arwa Kinski says, so Mike Lee is flipping from Trump to DeSantis. Was he ever with Trump? I mean, Mike Lee is somebody who's kind of a mixed bag. There's some things he does and says that are actually pretty solid, and some things he does and says that are not that solid. But compared to other Utah Republicans, he's like the star, but it doesn't really say a whole lot when you're the star of a bunch of Utah Republicans and you have people that are just massive Ukraine shills, and then you have Mitt Romney, and then you have the governor who claims to be a Republican but then uses pronouns at every single opportunity that he possibly can have. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, polite rude guy says, I filed a lawsuit challenging gay marriage in U.S. District Court SATX, paid $402 to advance my lawsuit. I hope I can order an appeal. Interesting. Didn't know people could do that individually. But what I will say is you have a Supreme Court that ruled a case wrongly, objectively wrongly, only because public opinion, they're answering more to public opinion than actually to the Constitution or the original intention of the Constitution. And they're saying, nope, it doesn't matter if certain states want to have these certain laws certain ways. No, absolutely not. We're going to make gay marriage legal nationwide, make that the law of the land, even though you have a 5-4 nominally conservative Supreme Court. Surprisingly, Roberts was not the one to cave on that, even though now I bet that he would if the Obergefell vote came up again, but we'll have to see. But it should be overturned. It absolutely should be overturned, should go back to the states. The problem is, culturally speaking, I don't believe we're in a position to like actually get people to open their eyes enough to really understand that the slippery slope started and really unraveled from that moment. But I do believe that with all the craziness you're seeing right now with a lot of this whole stuff, a lot more people are opening their eyes. And I think I will say that the support for gay marriage in the Republican Party is the lowest it's been since like 2015, which that's a very good thing, actually. I think that's a very good thing. We are moving the Overton window slowly, but you know, it's a slow process. People are going to have to understand the utilization of incrementalism as it does exist, because it is a thing. You know, the left thrives on incrementalism. They don't exactly try to take the whole mile all at once, even though it seems like they're moving fast. They get these little wins, but they all add up. You know, they say we demand more after the little win, and then they add more. The right will get something, and they'll be like either wanting it all in some cases, and they're not getting anything, or they get a little win and they're content with it and they're complacent with it and they don't demand more. And that's another problem. So, let's see. R. Watinsky says, I'm curious to know how your encounter with the black Republican you met at TPUSA that you converted back to Trump. Okay, so we know this guy Rufus from Twitter. A lot of people know Rufus. Rufus is this crazy guy. He's got a lot of incoherent positions ideologically. He's like 45, and he spends a lot of time arguing with people half his age, and he's like a diehard DeSantis guy. He thinks like Trump is the devil, Trump is evil, all these sort of things. And he's always talking about how he gets in these Ubers with, he always says like the black Uber driver that he talks about. He says he hates Trump and he loves DeSantis. He'd crawl over broken glass to vote for DeSantis, but he'd also crawl over broken glass to vote against Trump. And it's like, these stories are obviously fake. This guy's crazy, but it's funny because we were walking one of the nights we were in Florida, and we saw this guy that was obviously with the event, and we're like, Trump 2024, and he was like, DeSantis 2024. So I go up to him, have a little bit of a conversation with him as we're walking. I just told him, like, I said, why do you like DeSantis? And he's like, he's a good governor, this, that, and the other thing. But then I'm like, well, because you're a good governor, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good executive at the national level. And I talked to him a little bit, and he said he liked both. He was not one of those like diehard DeSimps or whatever. And he at the end of the conversation, which wasn't very long, he did kind of, come around or whatever. So that's kind of what happened. It wasn't like this big ordeal where I had to like go through with a whole hour and convert somebody. But no, it did happen, unlike a lot of the Rufus stories, which are obviously all made up. But it's true. That's kind of what happened there. But, a lot of people that are voting for DeSantis in the primary in the real world tend to like Donald Trump. And a lot of the people that are voting for Trump in the primary, they don't even like hate the other challengers necessarily as much as the people online do. However, at the same time, they're far less movable in their support for Trump than a lot of these other people are, because Trump already was that figurehead. He is the de facto incumbent leader of the Republican Party. One could say he's just the leader of the GOP in general. And they know that, and they liked him for many years, and they still tend to like him, even if they want to, do some window shopping. They're going to do some window shopping, but they're not going to buy anything at the end of the day. They're going to come back to Donald Trump because Trump is going to be that nominee, and the more legal stuff they throw at Trump, it only seems to help him in the primary. We'll talk about the general when we get there. I don't think it's going to really hurt him a whole lot, even, compared to like how much it's already baked into the cake with the whole baggage factor, because it just seems like, okay, Biden does all this stuff, doesn't exactly face any consequences, and now he's the authoritarian weaponizing the criminal justice system against his top opponent. It's not exactly a good look for Biden either, as many people really think it is. So Sam Harrison says, why does Trump do so bad in Utah? Mormons. It's mainly Mormons. And I mean, Utah's changed a little bit. You have a lot of people moving there from California as well. But it is mainly the Mormon factor. You look at it, and a lot of these people were, I guess you would say, diehard Romney Republicans in 2012. They just couldn't exactly stomach some of the personal baggage that Donald Trump had in 2016. They still overwhelmingly voted for him, and a lot more people came around in 2020 and 2024. Trump's going to do just fine in Utah. Even if he doesn't win it by 20, he'll probably at least win it by 10. So that's kind of why. I mean, that's one of the states where he's uniquely a bad fit just because of that Mormon demographic. But in a place like Arizona, I mean, that's kind of another thing there with the whole Mormon demographic as well, where that's kind of an issue for the GOP in some of those precincts in the Mesa, Gilbert area. But that's a whole nother discussion. Joshua, thank you for the 199. Sam Harrison again says, I also feel like a lot of people are dooming on 2024. I'm not dooming on 2024. I just think people need to be realistic. I see some people that are like, it'll be a landslide, and then some people that are like, Trump's going to lose Texas. The answer is going to be in between. I think that it's going to be a very close election regardless. Electorally speaking, it will be closer than 2020, in my opinion. And margin-wise in the states, we'll have to see. But, I mean, we're a very polarized nation. This is not going to be a cakewalk for either side. Joshua Zixel says, thoughts on Lake 2028. Well, Lake's going to have to win public office first before she runs in the first place. Otherwise, it's like the people that wanted Stacey Abrams to run for to run for president in 2020, or even to be on the ticket. It's like you're probably going to need some form of experience under your belt before you do decide to go out there on the national stage and run. And if you don't really have any, I just don't believe that you'll be as viable. Mr. Jimmy says, if Manchin runs for no labels, does it hurt Biden? I think so. I think a lot of people that don't like both, I think that you're going to see them flock to some third party or another. And the no labels party is going to be interesting. If they get on enough ballots, I think that they're probably going to, I would say they would help Donald Trump out a little bit. I don't think they would necessarily like give him the election. I think he could win without him. But I think that having the third party share be higher overall will likely help Trump if people that dislike both tend to be going more to Biden, which I don't know if they are a whole lot. People that dislike both in 2016 went to Trump. People that dislike both in 2020 were not high in number, but they did go for Biden. I think the answer in 2024 is going to be in the middle, but I think having like a Democrat senator that's a sitting senator on a presidential ticket that is kind of like relatively popular nationwide, I think that hurts Biden more than it hurts somebody like Donald Trump. I don't think they're going to win, but I do think that they could get a few percentage points of the popular vote, and that will have some electoral impacts. It will, regardless. Tiffany Harrison says, Byron Donalds would be great on domestic. He's black, super likable, America first guy. Thoughts? Scott is too slick and not sure I trust him. Yeah, I don't like Tim Scott for VP. I think Donalds would be a great VP. I don't care what his ethnicity is. I don't think that has any role in it. I don't think it helps Trump with black voters if he puts a black guy on the ticket. I do think Donald's would be great on a lot of things because he's somebody that the whole party does tend to like. He has a good relationship with many of Trump's primary opponents as well, even though on the issues he is fairly solid. And I think that Trump obviously would have to move his residency for that to happen because they are both from Florida. I do think it could be done fairly easily. And overall, I think that Donald's would be a decent pick for VP. I think he'd be up there. I think he should be on the short list. It depends on if Trump really wants to move that residency or not. B in DR News says 24 will be like 16. Unpopular Dem lets Trump win. Yeah, I think 2024, because a lot of people are saying Trump is cooked after 2020, but it's like, cooked how? His numbers are higher than they were when he won. Biden's numbers are lower than Hillary's when Trump beat Hillary. So I don't understand why people are saying you're risking it all with Trump or Trump is electorally unviable, because the numbers would say otherwise. They would. They absolutely would say otherwise. But they don't want to look at the numbers. They want to plug their ears and scream because the numbers show what their narrative technically just opposes. So, all right, we're an hour in. I want to get to this real quick. We're going to get to the rest of Super Chats. Feel free to send in Super Chats if you guys have more Super Chats to send in. But we have to talk about the non-electoral news of the night. Elon Musk is getting rid of Twitter. He's changing the bird to a black X. And I don't know what he's doing here. I don't know who signed off on this. I don't know why this is seen as a good idea. Because whether you like Twitter, whether you're on Twitter or not, it is one of the most iconic social media networks of all time. The bird is iconic. It's been around since 2006. People have known about Twitter for a very, very long time. And if he decides to go through with this change where Twitter is going to fully rebrand and you're going to replace Twitter and the bird with some black X, I don't know exactly how that's going to benefit the brand because there's been a lot of risky changes. And I've talked about this a little bit on the stream earlier because you have the fact that you have the Twitter blue, you're getting rid of legacy verification badges, and you're evening the playing field. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people didn't like it. I think it was a good thing. It helped the business. Now more people are paying. Now more people are bringing in revenue. Also, this incoming monetization thing that's going to be taking place. That's a good thing. We love to see that, absolutely, because now people that have been tweeting and then you have ads rolling, then they're going to be getting more revenue as a result. I don't know how much it's going to be. I'm not expecting a whole lot, but still, that's a good thing. You like to see these changes. They're making it a platform where people are going to be able to go, they're going to be able to create, and they're going to be able to walk away with something. And that's a very good thing if they're successful at Twitter because, yeah, you know, YouTube tends to be one of those only main platforms where people are going to be able to make money on. I know Instagram has ads now for their Reels or whatever, but Twitter, now you're inserting them in the monetization aspect, and people have, you know, subscriptions that they can have people subscribe to and they can get exclusive tweets or whatever. That's also true. But changing the brand name, I don't think this is going to help keep people on Twitter. And I think what it's going to do is a lot of people who would sign up initially, they're not going to know what's going on. So I don't think this is really the best move. I'd like to see what people have to say about this move. I don't know what people are going to say about this move, but I will say that I just don't personally see this as a net positive overall whatsoever. I just think rebranding it, especially now, because what we're seeing here is like it's been out of the news for a while. We haven't heard much Elon news over the past couple of months. We haven't heard much Twitter news really ever since. I haven't heard much from Elon ever since he did the DeSantis disaster announcement, but it's like we're looking at it and now they're going to rebrand. I don't know if this is the best move overall for them to do business-wise from a business standpoint. I don't know. We've been proven wrong about several things so far regarding Twitter and some of these rebrands, so we'll have to see. But if he's really getting rid of Twitter and the name is going to be changed to X and it's going to become x.com, which is like his own domain, it's like at that point, why exactly is this a thing that's going to happen just spontaneously, where a lot of people are just going to be extremely confused, and you're probably going to see people either leave Twitter or they're just not going to make a new one because, like, people that are saying, oh, well, I had a Twitter a couple years ago, let's make a new one, let's keep up with things. They're not going to be thinking about that if it doesn't exist. And that's the way I see it. So we have more super chats. Security TV says, Matt Walsh said, why are GOP voters putting a candidate like Trump that will lose the general when they can vote for DeSantis that will win the White House? Getting tired of hearing that. Well, where's the proof that DeSantis is electorally viable nationwide? Mitt Romney won Massachusetts. He bombed nationwide. And that was more of a Republican overperformance than whatever DeSantis cooked up in Florida. DeSantis probably is not much more electable than Trump in Florida at this point, maybe by a few points. But he's not going to win it by 19 over Biden. He might win it by like 12, 13. Trump's going to win it by like 10 anyways because the state's changed, because the state party has changed, and you already had trends that were working in that favor before DeSantis took office. And maybe we could give him some credit for that. I'm not going to lie. I think a lot of that is just PR, honestly. A lot of it is the PR team that's behind it. Trump is right. He's the #1 governor in public relations, and then a lot of other things. He's a little bit overrated because of that. And the public relations thing may work well in Florida, but it's bombed nationwide for him so far. I don't think he's viable. He's not going to win the Rust Belt. Biden's going to run a right-wing populist campaign in some elements. He's going to be talking about, I would say right-wing populist, but a more populist campaign. He'd be talking about protectionism. He'd be talking about protecting entitlements. And DeSantis would be DOA. He'd get just completely destroyed in the states that he would need to win the White House. You can't win without Wisconsin. Trump, I think, gives you a great shot at Wisconsin. I think he gives you a shot at Pennsylvania. I don't think DeSantis has a great shot at either of those states. Even if you give him Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, he only gets to 268. He's probably not getting Nebraska's second. And even then, you'd have to go through a loophole to win in the House. I don't see it happening at all, especially when we see these races without Trump on the ballot, even in a Republican favorable year like 2022 with candidates that Donald Trump endorsed in the primary. They don't always do well. They don't translate well. And as a result, we don't have the governorship in Wisconsin. We don't have the governorship in Michigan. Didn't even come close in Michigan or Pennsylvania. That's kind of a problem. And even though you might say, well, Trump endorsed Tim Michaels, DeSantis has a lot more in common with Tim Michaels as a whole than he has in common with Donald Trump. That didn't play out well in Wisconsin. Why do you think it would play out well this time? I don't know. But these people are just trying to gaslight people, and they're not doing so effectively because everybody knows it's nonsense when they look at how poorly his campaign is being run. If somehow he gets the nomination without any primary support, and this is the campaign he runs, how is he winning a general election? Biden would go out there, not even campaign, stay in the basement again, and just utterly destroy him. It wouldn't even be close. Andrew M. says, did you see Michael Knowles' interview with the Q shaman? What are your thoughts on it? I didn't see that. I kind of surprised he interviewed him in the first place, but I will say, because that footage did get released, now that guy got released from jail because they know that his case was proven innocent. Riley the Mini Dachshund says, saw your documentary on Texas. Do you really think Hispanics in that state will vote 50-50 by 2032? EOP has Texas for GOP in 24 by 5. Agree with him. I think it could be 5 in 24. I think that's fair. I think it depends on what happens between now and next November. But I don't know if Hispanics are going to be voting 50-50. I think it depends on how much immigration we get, and do we get amnesty, and like what will the Tejano trend have in store? Because if South Texas continues to move right, then maybe you will see those numbers go up from 40% Republican for Texas Hispanics to the mid 40s, and we'll see what happens from there. But 50-50 by 2032, that's possible. But Texas Hispanics are also not the same Hispanics nationwide. Like California Hispanics, they're different. Arizona Hispanics, they're different. More so than other places, especially in rural Texas, and they're moving right. And then Florida, you have the most conservative, or at least Republican Hispanics as a whole, especially with the Cubans and high Venezuelan population as well. Arnie Hernandez says, will economic populism be bigger after 2024? Depends who wins. Jesse Smith, thank you for the $1. Mike M says, what are your thoughts on Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town? Thanks for another live stream. Well, I think it's funny that the second that somebody makes a song in the mainstream that actually decides to do the opposite of glorifying crime, that's the one that gets canceled. You know, you have all these songs, a lot of them by, you know, rappers we know, a lot of them from black rappers talking about killing other black people. That's celebrated. But the second, you know, somebody says, you know, you try to burn a flag in my town, it's not going to end well. No, that's where you draw the line. That's where you draw the line. So I think it's good. I mean, I think the song is like okay as a song goes, you know, is what it is. But it's like, yeah, you have all these lyrics, a lot of these, you know, female rappers even, they talk about, yeah, they're just rapping about their vagina 24/7. Kids are listening to it. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. But, you know, the second you decide to say, you know, you beat up old people in my town, it's not going to end well. That's a problem. That's racist, even though there's no mention of any race in the song. So it is what it is. Adam Wheeler Productions says, I live in Maine's 2nd District. I have very apprehensively voted for Poliquin in 2022. Liz Caruso is considering another run, and she has my full support. Yeah, she should have won that primary. Had she won the primary, I think that seat would have had a much higher chance at actually flipping, presuming that she would have been funded, which, given how 2022 went, that really was not the case. But Ryan Tarrant says, if Cornel West is the Green Party candidate, will he be able to steal enough votes from Biden in Atlanta, Philly, etc.? I mean, it's possible that he could take votes away. I think he would obviously take votes away from the Democrats as a whole. So, yeah, I welcome it. I think he should be the Green Party ticket. He has name recognition, unlike a lot of other people that have run on the Green Party ticket in years past. And I think that he could go out there and, you know, take 1% to 2% of the national vote away. Most of that's going to be taken away from Biden. And it seems like he's going to run. It seems like he will get that nomination. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. He's very far left, but he's going to take votes away that Biden's going to need. And as a result, he's going to be able to go out there and help play spoiler, I guess you would say. So that's a good thing. Sam Madsen says, why in the hell does Elon want people to confuse Twitter with the porn website? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think it's a good business strategy. X as a whole, that could mean a lot of things. It's mystery is what it is when you see X, you know, when people talk about the signature, when it's blank, you see the X. Like, it's not necessarily something that will automatically get confused with a pornographic website. But I mean, there is also that element of it too. And it's going to get dunked on for that as well. And it's just like not the best move overall. I know that he named his son like XEA12. I don't even know what it was. Some bizarre, unorthodox name that includes X in it. But I mean, if he wanted to name a business venture after his son, I feel like he could create something else. I know he has SpaceX. You know, you already have the X there. I don't know why he has to go out there and rename Twitter to a letter of the alphabet that's just like kind of just weird as a whole. It's not a common letter for one, but that's not even the problem here. Security TV says, why is the Daily Wire backing DeSantis so hard? I probably would have to say because they're by and large legacy media to an extent. I mean, they're not as big, you know, they are newer. They have arguably a lot better people. Some of the people there are better than the best people at Fox at this point. That wasn't the case a couple of years ago or during the Trump presidency, but they're backing DeSantis because a lot of them tend to be establishment individuals. Not everybody at the network, but Ben Shapiro, he was a never Trumper in 2016. He didn't even vote for Trump in the general. He left the top of the ticket blank. And Matt Walsh was a very big critic of Donald Trump back throughout most of the 2016 cycle. And a lot of, you know, the people at the network, they supported people like Cruz, Rubio, you name it, during the primary cycle, they didn't really even support Trump in the general. It was more just like anti-Hillary posting. So they're not exactly like a national populist outlet. They've never been. There's some decent people there. I like Michael Knowles a lot. He seems to be the one there that's been pushing for Donald Trump compared to some of the other people there. But beyond that point, the good from the network regarding the presidential race kind of stops there. And that's the way that they've always kind of been. So Sam Madsen says, did Jorgensen take more from Trump or Biden, in your opinion? Probably slightly more from Trump, which I don't think that was the case with Gary Johnson. Well, even if it was very soft support. But you will see polls that'll have conflicting things on this type of thing. So I don't know. I think Jorgensen overall probably did hurt Trump more than she hurt Biden, but it wasn't really by a whole lot. So that's the way it is. If you guys have any more super chats, feel free to send them in. But as a result, I mean, we're 75 minutes in. We're probably going to end the stream pretty shortly. But it was good to come back. It was good to finally return, do a live stream. You guys have been great with the super chats tonight. Thank you. We appreciate it, of course. But yeah, there will be a new video tomorrow. We will try to release daily content this week. Hopefully videos every day, streams on Tuesday and Thursday that we're going to get to as well. So it's going to be epic. We're back. We're returning. And hopefully from here, we'll continue to monitor the situation that is the 2024 election, as well as other things that are going to be taking place. So, member chats. Do we have member chats? We'll get to member chats. If we have any member chats. I don't know do we even have any member chats? I don't even see any. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see any member chats here. I think we got them all, because I'm not seeing any. So, all right. We'll give it a minute. We'll end the stream. We'll end the stream in a minute or so. Let's see. Okay. But it is what it is. We're going to be doing daily content this week, hopefully. And we're going to continue to stream on Rumble as well, because this is the first stream where we've actually dual streamed it. We've simulcasted. That's never happened in channel history, but it's just good to kind of have a foot in both doors, especially with the rise of alt tech and the rise of Rumble recently as well. So that's the way it is. All right, guys, thanks for watching the stream. Make sure you guys like this stream. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another stream or video. And follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. I'll see you guys next time. Red Eagle, out.